also known as the basement of the world. The Grand Canyon is one of the most interesting yet weirdest places on Earth. From its mesmerizing scenery, unusual rock formations, to rare animal species, the national park attracts thousands of tourists every year. But what if I were to tell you there's actually a lot of strange and unexplainable phenomenon going on at the Grand Canyon?
I am not interested in dying of hantavirus, not today. So
join me, as in today's video, I'm going to talk about exactly that and reveal 15 weird things found in the Grand Canyon. Number 1. The Great Unconformity. How weird is it that more than millions or even billions of years of rock layers are missing in the Grand Canyon? Scientists and researchers have recorded a huge gap of nearly 1.2 billion years in the rock layers, and what that basically means is that's 1.2 billion years of Earth's history that hasn't been recorded. It can also be imagined as a book missing a lot of pages. Now, in the Grand Canyon, the Great Unconformity is found between the Tapiat sandstone, which is about 525 million years old, and the ancient Vishnu schist, which is a whopping 1.7 billion years old. But how does something like this even happen? When you think about it, missing rock pretty much means missing time in history. Well, experts haven't really been able to come up with a plausible explanation for it yet, but there are two major theories that really stand out. Some researchers believe that the missing gap exists because the eastern and western parts of the canyon moved up and eroded at different times. On the other hand, it's actually because about 1 billion years back, our Earth was a gigantic snowball. When all those massive glaciers began to melt, it led to erosion on a terrifying scale, wiping out billions of years of history with it. Or look at it this way, when the rocks began to erode, the top layer was washed away by all the erosion and replaced with new sediment. So now an entire layer of history is just missing. When you think about it, our Earth is a really weird place. We had dinosaurs, sloths that started in the seas, and not to mention that period when it rained continuously for 2 million years. And to top it off, there's more than 1 billion years of history just missing in the canyon. You can't make this stuff up. Number 2. The Cave of the Domes. There's actually an entire network of a subterranean cave system in the Grand Canyon known as the Cave of the Domes. It's called that because as you go deeper with the caves, you start coming across exceptional formations of domes that have evolved over millions of years due to limestone erosion. But what's so weird about a complex network of domes? Well, it's the buildup of deposits on the roofs of these domes that makes it so weird. I know this is going to sound strange, but it almost looks as if human organs are hanging off the roofs of these domes. Believe it or not, in some places inside the domes, it also looks like long pieces of bacon hanging down from the ceiling. The caves and domes themselves are pretty safe though, but there are a few parts of the cave that you have to crawl and squeeze through. I don't know about you, but this is giving me serious nutty putty vibes. Thankfully, no such incidents have ever been recorded going down inside the Cave of the Domes, but still, I wouldn't want to get stuck with weird organ-like deposits hanging right above my head. What's interesting is that the domes were actually closed a little while back due to rodents and the rapid spread of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. So yeah, even though there are a lot of cool things to see inside the caves, I'd recommend that you stay away from it. A lot of people have actually reported feeling very eerie and out of place inside the caves, almost like the place doesn't want to be disturbed. Number 3. Dinosaurs never entered this place. How old is the Grand Canyon really? I mean, the fact that experts are still clueless about so many things is kind of strange. Some researchers think that the canyon is young and just 6 million years old, while others believe it is an ancient wonder formed by a river over 70 million years ago. But either way, want to hear the weird bit? No dinosaur bones were found in the Grand Canyon. Yes, there are thousands of fossils, but none was of a dinosaur. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe how not a single dinosaur in history has ever roamed the canyon. But coming back to the whole age thing, if the canyon is truly young and just 6 million years old, it makes sense why there are no bones down there. On the other hand, if it predates back 70 million years, then it is actually older than the dinosaur and brings all attention back to the question, why are there no dino bones in the Grand Canyon? Plus, the studies actually tell us that the T-Rex and plesiosaurs were actually native to the region. So what really happened? Well, it's possible that a huge river might have taken everything in its path, washing away the dinosaurs as well, because almost all fossils found there are of marine animals, with some of them dating back to 1.2 billion years. Number 4. Fossils in the Grand Canyon. Since we're on the topic of animals in the Grand Canyon, it's an absolute geological marvel, rich with remains of fossils, ancient plants, and animal remains. No dinosaurs, though, but anyway, because some parts of the canyon are over 2 billion years old, researchers have come across some really interesting findings. For example, the majority of fossils found in the Grand Canyon are of trilobites, which are extinct marine arthropods that lived more than 500 years ago. But that's not all. Brachiopods, bryozoans, crinoids, and even cephalopods, which are basically related to the present-day octopuses and squids, and are just some of the marine animals found down there. But marine life wasn't the only species to have roamed the basement of the Earth. A lot of large herbivores, including the extinct western camel, massive ground sloth, and the majestic white goat, were some of the animals that were found in the canyon. Believe it or not, there are actually huge limestone boulders throughout the Great Canyon that have trilobite fossils just sticking out in plain sight. And since the trilobite is pretty much an insect, the fact that fossils are found in such high numbers means that the canyon was once full of these arthropods. Just thinking about that gives me weird tingling sensations all over my body. I mean, imagine for a second that the floor of the entire Grand Canyon has millions of these little arthropods just crawling all over the place. I definitely wouldn't have been a big fan of that. Nowadays, apart from the deadly snakes and spiders, it's usually just squirrels who bite tourists trying to feed them. Number 5. The Coconino sandstone. What's special about the Coconino sandstone is that it's actually made from a type of sea sand, and what that basically means is that it's possible there were actually sand dunes in the Grand Canyon. I mean, can this place get any weirder? There's just so much history down there, and it's incredible how so many different things exist in just one place. Researchers estimate that the Coconino sandstone is around 275 million years old, while having a thickness of around 350 feet. If you went back in time and stood on the Coconino sandstone, it's possible that you may have even been able to see the distant shimmers of Panthalassa, the super ocean surrounding Pangaea. But while the Coconino is definitely a sign of the great forces that once shaped this canyon, it holds a lot of other histories as well. For example, there are a ton of tracks in the Coconino sand of a tiny reptile called the Chelichnus. Scientists find these tracks way more fascinating than just bones, since they actually show the behavior of these reptiles. But here's where things get strange again. Despite tracks all over the Coconino sandstones, there are no bones of this reptile in the canyon. I mean, there are records showing that a dinosaur as massive as a T-Rex was native to the region, but no bones were ever found. And now there's a tiny lizard-like reptile with tracks as proof, but there are no bones in this animal either? I don't know, but something clearly doesn't add up here. Number 6. Uranium. This is definitely one of the weirdest and most bizarre things found in the Grand Canyon. Like, on one hand, we're talking about stuff like the Great Unconformity and the Coconino Sandstone Cliff, and how you could stand on it and literally catch a glimpse of the super ocean. On the other hand, it's weird how it's just become a modern-day mining site due to the abundance of uranium down in the canyon. Since it's a radioactive metal that's used in nuclear power plants, there's a massive mining operation going on in the canyon right now, and even though it's definitely not the most intriguing thing found, it does, however, happen to be a massive concern. A lot of species have become endangered due to mining operations, and the Chiricahua leopard frog is perhaps the most affected species on the list. And speaking of the most intriguing thing in the canyon, this is definitely it, since it's a type of a frog that has a distinct pattern which looks exactly like that of a leopard. But yeah, uranium mining in the region isn't exactly something new, since the first deposits were discovered back in the 1950s. Honestly speaking, the Great Canyon should be the last place on Earth to mine uranium. It's rich with history and was once the homeland of at least 11 different American tribes, being the crown jewel of national parks in the United States. Number 7. Supai Village. This might not exactly be something weird found in the Grand Canyon, but trust me, it's definitely interesting, and it's even possible you might have never heard about it. The Supai Village actually happens to be one of the most breathtaking landscapes in the canyon, full of mesmerizing waterfalls and greenery. It has some of the most incredible red rock formations along with turquoise pools, making it an absolute sight for tourists and visitors. Believe it or not, this remote village is only accessible by horseback. But if you're feeling adventurous, you could definitely reach it on foot as well, but it won't be exactly easy. And here's what's even more interesting about the Supai village. There are actually about 200 residents, part of the Havasupai tribe, living in the village. It's one of the oldest and most remote communities in all of the states, and while it seems awesome when you look at it from a tourist's point of view, I can't help but imagine whether the tribe has some secrets of their own. They've been living in the village for 100s of years now, and when the sun goes down and it's pitch black in the canyon, I'm sure they heard and felt a lot of unexplainable things. As magnificent as the Grand Canyon is, there are actually a lot of tales of spirits that have haunted it for centuries. But yeah, believe it or not, the tribe actually had to fight a long battle with the National Park Service for their right to stay on a small portion of their land. And that makes sense because they are known in history as the guardians of the Grand Canyon, and because they have such little contact with the outside world, displacing them would be pretty unfair. Who would have known, though, that there's literally an ancient tribe living down there? Number 8. The past. Yep. One of the weirdest things found in the Grand Canyon is actually the past, because when you go down there, it's not just rocks and caves, it's our planet's history. Our Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, and considering how some researchers and experts consider the canyon to be formed around 2 billion years back, what you're looking at down there is our home millions of years ago. It's possible that you might have even touched or walked on a rock that was there when the entire continent was surrounded by the superocean, with tall and broad herbivores roaming the canyon. As I mentioned before in this video, whenever people go down in the canyon, they almost feel as if they are disturbing the area. And when you think about it, it's so many years of history crammed in one place that one can't do anything but feel heavy and out of place. The national park even has a special trail called the Trail of Time, which is a 283-mile-long walk between the Yavapai Geology Museum and Maricopa Point. Oh, and here's a really cool fact about the Trail of Time. Every meter walked on the trail signifies 1 million years of the canyon's history. Number 9. Split twig figures. Considering how there is still an ancient tribe in the Supai village, a lot of researchers think the Grand Canyon was actually home to an ancient civilization as well. There are detailed carvings inside the caves, and while experts are uncertain of what they really mean, it could just be the secrets of the people of the canyon. But beyond all the carvings and other weird observations, there's actual solid proof of an ancient civilization inhabiting the mysterious canyon. What is this proof I'm talking about, though? Well, believe it or not, people have actually found tiny, intricate figures crafted from twigs by ancient inhabitants. The figures mostly resemble animals like bighorn sheep and horses, and that's probably a strong indicator of how this ancient civilization is actually quite young compared to the rest of the canyon. These artifacts were discovered in caves by explorers back in the 1970s and 80s, and after radiocarbon dating, it was revealed that they were only 2,000 years old. It's also suggested that these figures had a deep meaning, since they were a crucial part of religious rites, hunting, magic, and were even believed to have brought good fortune to hunters. Plus, it's already kind of strange how most of these artifacts were found in caves that were not easily accessible, suggesting those might just have been holy sites used for ceremonies or worship. But yeah, there are always two sides to a coin, and some people just think these artifacts were simply just toys. I still wouldn't count out the first theory, though, especially when you realize how they were found in some of the oddest places of the Grand Canyon. Number 10. Petroglyphs and rock art. Petroglyphs or wall carvings aren't exactly something unusual in the Grand Canyon, considering they can be found in a lot of caves. But the strange thing about them is that they're actually quite detailed and show that whatever indigenous people drew them knew a lot about the modern world. For instance, there are drawings and carvings of geometric shapes, as well as abstract designs in some of the most remote places of the canyon. Carvings of a circle looking exactly like a wheel make you wonder just how advanced, or at least how smart, this civilization might have been. Also, It's weird how caves with the most carvings and art have actually been sealed off to the public. Could it be possible that they're trying to hide something from us? Or could it just be a guide to the Grand Canyon and all these mysteries it holds? Well, I guess only time will tell, as researchers are still trying to crack the code and learn how to read these carvings. Like the ancient Egyptians, experts have now started to understand a lot of petroglyphs, so maybe one day we'll actually know what really happened in the canyon and how this ancient civilization just ended up disappearing with no trace but figures and art. Oh, and remember how split twig figurines only dated back to about 2,000 years ago? Well, the petroglyphs and wall art found in the spooky caves of the Grand Canyon are estimated to be more than 10,000 years old during the Archaic period. A little fact about the Archaic period: it's known as the earliest phase of culture, and what that basically means is that this ancient civilization might have just been a proper society with economic and social order. Number 11. Cursed objects. You'll find a lot of cool stuff down in the canyon, and honestly, while it might not be the weirdest thing, there have been quite a few cases of tourists reporting they've taken home a cursed object from the canyon. The park rangers report receiving all sorts of crazy stuff sent back by tourists every single year. Why do they send them back? Well, they claim the objects are cursed, and ever since they took them from the canyon, their lives have either become haunted or just become a massive wreck. And the only way to undo the curse is by sending the object back where it was found. Perhaps that's why it's pretty much illegal to take anything you find at the canyon back home. And I'm not just talking about stumbling upon something unusual. You're not even allowed to take a piece of rock from the canyon. That's how crazy it is. Remember how I was telling you about that eerie sensation visitors get about not wanting to disturb the place? Well, maybe that's why it's best not to take anything home. There are also a lot of scary stories of things that happen to tourists after visiting the Grand Canyon, but I'll save those for another video, maybe. Number 12. An actual hotel. Yes, you heard that right. There's an actual hotel down in the Grand Canyon known as the Grand Canyon Cavern Suites. It's known as the darkest, quietest, and oldest motel room in the world. It's about 220 feet underground, surrounded by cavern walls more than 65 million years old. I mean, I'm sure it sounds pretty interesting if you're an adventure seeker, but before making plans, just hear me out. About 2 years back, a group of 5 tourists were stranded 21 stories beneath the surface of the Grand Canyon due to an elevator malfunction. They were underground for nearly 30 hours, and while there wasn't any real danger since they had everything they needed, it would have still been quite a scary situation to be in since you're 220 feet underneath the ground. Plus, what if the elevator needed to be replaced or something major broke down? What would they have done then? Or even worse, what if they were inside the elevator when it broke down? I mean, getting trapped in an elevator inside a building is something else, but being left stranded for nearly 30 hours in an elevator in one of the most remote places on Earth is pretty terrifying. Oh, and just for the record, they do have emergency stairs, but not everyone can climb them. Either way, there's absolutely no way I'd stay in a hotel 220 feet beneath the surface. Would you? Number 13. Pseudoscorpions. Back in 2005, researchers were busy uncovering mysteries inside a cave in the northern part of the canyon when they observed a tiny scorpion-like insect. They were all blown away, considering they'd never seen something like that in their entire lives, and after another 7 years of research on these tiny nightmares, they discovered a new type of arachnid called Pseudoscorpions. And for someone who still doesn't know they actually exist, I can't imagine how terrifying it must be coming across them. I mean, if one scorpion wasn't bad enough, imagine thousands of them, but smaller all around you. Since they're not half an inch in size, with the largest being only 0.3 inches, it's very easy to confuse them with spiders or ticks. But not only do they look like scorpions, they also have poison glands just like the normal ones. Fortunately for us, they're pretty much harmless. But I still don't know how bad it'd be if a million of them decided to team up and bite you. Anyway, miniature scorpions definitely have to be one of the weirdest things found in the Grand Canyon. Number 14. E. coli. At this point, I'm sure just as confused as I am, wondering why in the world is the Grand Canyon even a tourist destination. Not sure, there's no denying it's a natural wonder of the world with so many breathtaking views and history, but what about all the other stuff? You know, pseudoscorpions and cursed objects. What about all that? And just in case that wasn't enough, The Grand Canyon has E. coli as well. And for those of you who don't know what E. coli is, it's basically a bacteria found in food and in the intestines of animals and humans. Whoever gets E. coli usually has to go through some really painful symptoms, such as diarrhea, cramps, headaches, and kidney failure. Believe it or not, E. coli can also lead to death in some cases. E. coli was discovered in the canyon back in 2023 in the water supply near Phantom Ranch. So if you ever decide to go near that place, just remember, bring your own water. Don't try to drink that water in the canyon just because it looked clean. Number 15, delivery by mule. So what is the weirdest thing found in the Grand Canyon? Considering how we've already covered some really absurd things, you're probably thinking this is going to be something out of this world. Well, it might not be out of this world, but seeing this while you're visiting the Grand Canyon would definitely be super bizarre. Remember the Supai Village I was talking about earlier? Well, since there are only 3 ways to get there, delivery mail by the mule is the easiest way to get letters to the tribe. Yes, we're in the 21st century, and mail is still delivered by a mule in the Grand Canyon. I mean, the fact that they're still using it probably means it's quite efficient. But I'm just trying to imagine how outrageous it would be to see that happening in a place so mysterious and full of history. Anyway, that's it for this video, people. So, what do you think is the weirdest found in the Grand Canyon? And did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more interesting content. Thanks.